This video is designed to help you effectively use social media to keep your students and their parents informed of what's going on in class so they can be fully prepared to succeed. I've tried to give you a live information here, and I'd rather give you more than you need than less. So anytime, feel free to use the menu to the left, and you can skip to chapters that interest you if something isn't relevant. We'll start by talking about what results you can and can't expect, helping you find a good goal that you could use to measure your success, and keeping you from feeling discouraged by expecting unreasonable results. I'll show you how to set up class accounts for Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Then I'll show you an easy way to streamline your posting so you don't spend every afternoon updating all of your sites. We'll conclude with some ideas for how to engage your students using social media and how to get parents to also follow the accounts so they'll help you with keeping the students accountable for the information. After using social media in the class, one thing I've noticed is that if you don't have a healthy goal, it can be very discouraging. So I want to start by dispelling some rumors and warning you against unrealistic goals. This way you'll be more effective in targeting goals that can be met and goals that will have a more positive result on your classroom. The first misconception is that while your students may be impressed and excited the first time you announce your class's Twitter or Facebook account, they probably still won't want to be seen following their teacher on Twitter. It's just not what the cool kids do, and following your class account carries a risk of being teased. So some students will be mature enough not to care, and some are like I was in high school and have nerdy friends who won't tease them anyway. But many won't feel comfortable being seen following your account, and you may not have a ton of followers. That's okay. The second misconception is that if a student isn't following me, they aren't benefiting from the social media. But you have to realize that you're going to be creating public pages. A student may not follow you, they may not want to be seen following you, but they can always go to your Twitter feed and see the homework if they forgot to write it down, and that's just as good. That's what most kids will end up doing because their friends can't see they're checking your feed, and there's going to be no risk of teasing or looking like a nerd. Similarly, some kids have a habit of writing down the homework, and they benefit from the social media option because the 1 in 100 times that they forgot to write down the homework, you've given them an easy place to find it, which is great. Throughout this video, I'll be mentioning ideas to get more likes and more followers, and that is something to work for because it normalizes a behavior following the class and getting that information that's going to make it easier for them to get their work done on time, every time, but followers aren't how you should ever judge your success. The third misconception is that all my students will suddenly be doing their homework. Unfortunately, I didn't see a huge jump in the number of people turning in their homework when I started using social media, but I did see a dramatic decrease in kids making excuses for not doing their homework. And I think that's what the best and the healthy goal is for using social media. Your use of social media should hold students accountable to do their work, forcing them to act in a mature and responsible way. Personally, that's the reason I started using social media. I got tired of students not trying to do their work, and then when I had a parent conference or a parent phone call, the student would blame me. Allowing students to make excuses was reinforcing immature behavior. It set them up for failure in the work world because their boss isn't going to care even if it is his or her fault. They're not going to care. And more dangerously, I noted that when students claimed that I didn't tell them about the homework, even after I convinced parents that I did announce the homework and that the child should be held accountable for their choice to not do the homework for the last 2 months. The discussion took so long that it was already derailed, and the child wasn't really held accountable because the issue was already off track. By adding the social media aspect, this all went away. If somebody doesn't study or doesn't do their homework and wants to say it's my fault, I simply tell them it was on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, my website, on the board, and I announced it in class. That ends the debate. And it ends it so quickly that parents are still upset enough to remember that their child has not been doing their homework and they need to deal with that. Many students will still choose not to do your homework or they'll choose not to study, but they are forced to admit that that was their choice, and parents, counselors, administrators, we teachers, we find it easier to justify the disciplinary measures appropriate to this type of behavioral choice rather than backing off for fear that maybe we're punishing the child for the teacher's mistake when they didn't announce it or didn't make it clear. I've even had students call somebody else out in class when somebody was complaining, and they would tell them that they're tired of hearing the excuses, that if they didn't follow me, that was their choice, but they are responsible. So if you want to make your goal to hold the students accountable for their work, then you're going to find you're much more successful and much more satisfied with the way you use social media. And you're also going to feel freer to experiment with new ways of engaging students or trying to take the classroom into their daily lives, because even if something doesn't work out, you won't feel like you failed. You've still succeeded at your fundamental goal of holding these kids accountable and helping them take mature choices as they approach their work. The legal and ethical considerations of social media are probably the largest concern to teachers and principals, especially since Tennessee a few years ago passed a law prohibiting teachers from having social contact with their students via social media. And if you violate that, you can be fired. However, there are ways of approaching social media without violating that law and being able to take the classroom to the child rather than you following them socially, which is the prohibition. You should certainly talk to your principal before implementing social media in the class, because different principals have different comfort levels. I can speak to Germantown High School. If you're there, Dr. Horrell is very open to the use of social media. Conversely, I've also heard of some principals from other schools simply saying no social media, period, for fear of problems that allowing it might bring or indiscretions on the part of teachers. So just ask first, and a bit of advice, it doesn't hurt to go to your principal with a clear explanation of how you're going to use this social media in the classroom so that they know you're going to use it correctly and they're not going to be worried that you're going to do the wrong thing and become a liability, but rather they're going to see that you know exactly how to use this to further educational goals, which isn't going to cause anybody problems. If you are at Germantown High School, the rules you need to follow are pretty simple. Number one, don't follow any students on social media. Students can follow you, but you cannot follow students back. I let students know this up front because some of the students want more followers and they want me to follow them in exchange for them following the class. But this rule is really from the state law. It's not just some principal's rule, so it's definitely one that regardless of where you are, you need to make sure you're following. But it's okay for students to follow the social media. Number two is really more of a common sense one. Don't use your personal Twitter, Facebook, etc. You don't want to do that anyway. Just keep those two worlds separate. You'll be happier. I like to keep my personal accounts on the highest privacy settings so that my students don't follow me, and my school accounts are on the lowest so that anybody can have access to the homework or any other materials that I may be posting for my classes. Number three, treat social media the way you would any other public discussion. This is logical, but it's often easy to forget because you're behind a computer. Don't say anything you wouldn't say over the loudspeaker at the FedEx Forum. You still have a lot of freedom within that. Last year, I had a parent permission slip for students interested in getting a Twitter or Instagram shout out if they made over a 90 on their exam, and it wasn't a problem. I didn't say their exact grade because this is a public forum, but I said something to the effect of so-and-so made a good grade on their exam. I had a permission slip because this is a public statement. I had parent permission. I wasn't saying their particular grade, and it wasn't a problem. Number four, always ask yourself, could I justify this to the board if I were called in to explain a post? This, to me, is the most liberating rule because so much can be justified, and you can make your feed a lot of fun if you use this as your security. I'm a Spanish teacher, and when we do a chapter that covers positions, I'll Instagram myself standing on top of a chair and under a chair and next to a chair and just weird positions. The pictures are weird, embarrassing. The kids think they're the funniest thing they've ever seen. They love it. And if someone wanted to complain, I'm very safe. They demonstrate vocabulary that I can show them the exact page number that this vocabulary is from. If you teach biology and want to Instagram pictures from your trip to the zoo, I'm sure there's some caption that would tie the pictures to something that you covered in class last week. The kids will love it. It's a little bit more fun than just a straight up feed of the homework. It's not as boring. It engages the students, and it gives practical real life application to what you did in class. So using a rule like, can I explain this to the board, really keeps you very safe. As we get into the specifics of setting these accounts up, keep in mind you'll need to plan to do this off campus since social media sites are blocked by the school's internet, which is why this tutorial is in a movie form and you can watch it from anywhere. Class Facebook pages are unique among these social sites in that you'll actually be using your personal account to create the page, but once you create the page, it can be public even if your personal Facebook page is private. Similarly, Facebook will give you the option of using Facebook either as yourself or under the name of one of your pages. This way you can respond to students' questions as the class page rather than on your personal account. Now, finding how to create the page is the most difficult part because Facebook likes to make changes to their layout so frequently that this video would be useless within months if I told you the exact steps for creating the page. So the best thing to do is simply go to the top here where you want to search for people and type create a new Facebook page. This is a very reliable way to find their help topic on creating the page, and even when they change their layouts, it will still direct you to their help topic. I typically set up my class using this company, organization, or institution selection with the category being education. Now you need to name your page. Keep in mind you probably will have multiple classes. I'm going to name mine Senor Gore 2. This allows me to make sure all my page names will be uniform, even for pages I don't need this year. I typically only teach levels 1 and 2, so that's all the pages I'm making right now. But years down the road, when some of the veteran teachers in the department have retired, I want to make sure I won't have to worry about somebody stealing the page names I'll need. If I name my pages something that would be in high demand, like Spanish 1, Spanish 2, then in a few years, when I want to make a Spanish 3, the odds are somebody's going to have already taken that. And then it becomes very confusing for students if my level 1s are all named page Spanish 1, the page name for level 2 is Spanish 2, and then level 3 has to go to Germantown High School, Tennessee, Spanish 3, because everything else is taken. It's going to become very confusing for the students, and it won't be as effective. You really want to be able to make it so that if a student had you for one class, then you don't really have to tell them what the name of the page is the next time they have you for a class, because all these are uniform formatting. They can guess at it. If you're in my Spanish 1 class and it was Senor Gore 1, and you're in my Spanish 2 class, you can probably guess that that's going to be Senor Gore 2. The advantage of this type of name is that the people who want to name something Senor Gore, there aren't many of them. Unless it's another male Spanish teacher with the last name of Gore, we're not going to be in competition. So it keeps my addresses very short, and it makes sure, because it starts with something rare, that when I come back to it later, I can get a very similar name and keep the same pattern. The other consideration is the amount of variety you expect to have between periods of the same level in class. If you expect a high variation in homework or other postings, you may want to make a different page for each period, such as Senor Gore 2-1, Senor Gore 2-2 for second period. That has some advantages, it has many disadvantages. My classes tend to be roughly in step, and key markers like homework and test days are usually the same, even if specific content within a class might vary. So I generally use one page for all of level 1 and one page for all of level 2. When we hit EOCs or have a snow day, I'll just write in my post and say, fourth period, your homework is this, and everyone else you have that, if fourth period had a different schedule and was out of sync. One disadvantage to making a different page for each period is that if you plan to make a Twitter account as well as a Facebook account, then those are going to want separate email addresses for each username, which means you probably, unless you have 12 or 13 different emails, aren't going to be able to have as many Twitter accounts as you would Facebook accounts. And then you're going to be probably forced to not name your Twitter accounts the same as you name your Facebook pages, making it harder for students to follow. The less names line up, the easier it is to lose a student, and the more excuses they have for not being able to find you. So I suggest keeping page names to a minimum, even if it means you have to put a little bit of a note in each of your posts to say this is what second period had, but fourth period, Spanish 1 had this. Now at this point you'll be designing your page. So I should let you know that Facebook has the oldest demographic of the various social media websites. Most parents that have social media access are going to have Facebook. And most students are actually abandoning Facebook because their parents are now on it and they don't want their parents following them. So I like to write my descriptions and design my page to subconsciously cater to the parents. I don't want to say it out loud, but I want to try and subtly attract the parents to this because this is the most likely place to find them. Consequently, my description here is going to focus on staying informed of what's happening in class because parents want to be informed. Students aren't as interested in that phrasing. Also, I'm going to mention tests and quizzes before homework because parents are more interested in knowing what's coming up and the tests and the quizzes. Students are more focused on the homework because that's happening within the next 24 hours. For websites, if you're able to, lead with your school website if there's a direct link, but you're also going to list every other social media site that you might have. With social media, it's important to make sure you link them all together because that's how people typically use social media. And you get better responses if somebody can pick the method of delivery that best suits them and be able to use this linking to go through and find that. Now you want to pick a good profile picture. This keeps your site from looking generic and makes it more attractive to students. Also, you don't want to make any two pages that you set up have the same profile picture because later when I show you how to pre-schedule all these posts so you don't have to spend all day posting to them, the program that we're going to use shows you your profile picture to let you pick what to post to. So if all of your pictures are the same, it's going to be hard to tell one account from another. I would suggest adding some pictures, maybe even an introductory post or two at this point during the summer. I usually add some pictures of famous Spanish or Latin American locations that might interest students, or similar things that students should be able to look through and kind of get drawn into the subject matter. You could even add study resources such as charts, formulas they might need, even funny pictures that rely on knowledge of your subject matter for the punchlines. That way they kind of see a non-academic use of this subject, and it again kind of connects that to real life and something that they're interested in. This step might feel weird or juvenile of adding the pictures, but what you're trying to do is engage people, and so you need to give them something to engage with. Once again, keep in mind that many of your Facebook followers are going to be parents, so you might want to skew your postings to engage with them a little bit more than you might engage with the students. And then finally, you do want to invite friends to like your new page. If you think back to when you were a teen, kids jump on any bandwagon that's moving if there are enough people on it. So if you prime the pump and get your friends to like the page, building about 30 to 40 likes before August, you can make it seem normal that people would follow this feed and get homework information there. And it gives students a crowd to hide among so they don't look like the teacher's pet by being the first one to like your page. I frequently invite people and then post on my Facebook timeline the reason I want them to like the page. This way I get some of my friends on board who have that vision of wanting to try and make sure that it looks like a cool place to be liking this page. Then by the end of the year, you also want to make sure you stop posting school stuff once school ends. This helps students from last year forget to unfollow you. And then you come into next August with more likes. It's a little bit more comfortable for students in the new class to follow you. And then even if the other students start to fall off as you make more posts, you've already created that bandwagon appeal for this year's students to follow your feed and get information. Twitter accounts are much easier to set up than a Facebook page. Simply go to twitter.com. You'll see a form asking if you're new. Fill in the info about yourself. You aren't creating your username yet, so use your name as students would call you, not as you want the username to be. You'll also notice that once your email, Twitter tends to want more of a 1-to-1 ratio between emails and accounts, so don't expect to be able to create 19 or 20 different accounts unless you have that many email addresses, and check them. When you click sign up for Twitter, you'll be able to pick your username. Ideally, make this the exact same name as the page name of your Facebook and Instagram if you use those. If you skip the Facebook chapter, take a moment to rewind and watch me pick the username. I discussed many important considerations that should go into picking a name that's the best one, and I'm not going to repeat them here. I'll be calling this account Senor Gore 2. Now once you're in, you're going to want to go to this cogwheel and select Settings, and then Profile. And in here, you can put in your website. Again, this is going to be some of the other social media websites you have. Possibly your school website if you have a direct link to that. So I've put in my Facebook website for this same class. You want to also create a bio. Again, this one is probably going to be more for the younger, for the students themselves and for their parents. I've put homework first before test info because again, students are more interested in what's happening in the next 24 hours than a test which might be a week away. And then finally, just like we did with Facebook, you need to get some followers for this account. The purpose is, once again, so the students don't feel like they're the only one following the teacher. That's going to make them stick out and look like the teacher's pet. But rather, if the account already has 20 to 30 followers, students feel kind of a positive peer pressure to follow as well because it seems like a normal thing that people are doing. With Facebook, you have the option of being able to just invite friends. You'll get a pretty good response that way. With Twitter, you're going to have to be a little more proactive. You need to email your friends asking them to follow you. You may even want to just give them a list of all the ones you're setting up. Explain, that you're trying to help make sure the students feel like it's safe to follow this. It's something a lot of people are doing, using that positive peer pressure. A lot of your friends, and other adults will respond to that pretty well. You might want to get other teachers to follow your account because they're going to be on board with your mission. You might even ask students who have graduated. They might be willing to follow you, help you out, especially if they were in a club that you sponsored, or they feel some sort of a special inclination to support your efforts because you were influential to them before graduation. So now that you have a Twitter account, I would also strongly encourage you to try and get parents to follow this account as well. Most adults think Facebook is easier and think Twitter is just something else they have to fool with. They've already got a Facebook account. They'll often stick with that. However, the truth is that Twitter can send tweets from selected people, like the teachers, directly to the phone, whereas Facebook is really designed for somebody to log in and peruse it like you would a newspaper. The perusing idea feels kind of comfortable for the newspaper generation, but the truth is that while their kids may have time to spend browsing online and looking at their friends' statuses, parents have dinners to cook and adult responsibilities that get in the way of things like that. So checking your class feed on Facebook could easily fall off the radar, which you don't want. If a parent signs up on Twitter, even if it's just to keep up with you, and even if yours is the only account that comes to their phone, it can be extremely easy to keep up with because the updates come as text messages. Many adults already get text messages. The parents are comfortable with that. It just shows up every day. They see it. They know what's going on with their child, what's coming up, and they're more likely to kind of be concerned if they haven't seen their student studying for a test that's coming up in 2 days, and they're more likely to get involved because it's coming to their phone every single day. If you want to encourage and help parents with this, I've made a video teaching parents how to set up this text notification. Just go to the website for Germantown High School, then find my school website. I'm under the Foreign Language Department list. The link to that video is going to be there on my website. If you're not familiar with Instagram, it's a picture and video sharing site that allows you to add a caption, and it's probably the most popular social media site right now. You simply follow people and periodically check your Instagram app. Any picture someone you follow has posted shows up in your feed, and you scroll through them. So kids will be scrolling through their friends' pictures, and they're going to see your announcement about the homework or whatever else you want to say. Instagram is the easiest to sign up for, but you have to do so from your phone or a tablet. They have a website you could go to from a normal computer, but it's not easy to use and you can't create an account there. You have to have a smartphone, so go to your App Store, Google Play, etc., and you can find the Instagram app, which is free. When you launch the app, you'll see an option to either sign in or register. Click Register, then pick your username and password. If you didn't watch the chapter from the Facebook section on picking a username, do so now. I won't repeat all the considerations here just in the interest of time, but there is a lot that goes into being able to pick a good, efficient username. Don't link this to Facebook or Twitter. It's not set up to easily accommodate somebody managing multiple accounts, so you'll end up with one prep link to Twitter, and anytime you try to send something from Instagram to Facebook or Twitter for another class you teach, it'll go to the wrong one. Now, go to Edit Your Profile, and here you can pick a profile picture, fill out a description, etc. It's not as important on Instagram to have a unique profile picture because Instagram posts can't be automated like the other accounts can be. One final task. Before you launch your social media sites for the kids, you want to get 20 to 30 followers on Instagram to prime the pump and make sure the first few kids following you don't feel awkward and don't know that they're the first to follow you. So email friends, family, etc. and ask them to follow your Instagram feed. Since Instagram is used primarily by young people and it's not quite as well known by adults, you may even want to consider asking youth from your neighborhood, church, etc. to follow you if you need to round out those 20 to 30 followers. Instagram posts cannot yet be automated, though that might change in the future. Posting to Instagram will be covered separate from the other sites. The first hurdle is how to post. Because Instagram is image-based, whereas the others are text-based, posting information like the page numbers for tonight's homework can be difficult. What I normally do is write the homework on the board, take a picture of it, and post a picture of the words Workbook Page 101 with a caption saying tonight's homework. It's clean and easy to do. What I suggest you do, however, is when you first start with Instagram, let the kids vote. I stumbled upon this trick when I was first trying to get into Instagram, and I wasn't really sure what to do or how to post to them. So I posted several options for announcing the homework and told the students that they had until Wednesday night to vote on what format they liked the best. To vote, they would go to the image they preferred and like it. Wednesday night, I looked at the pictures, counted up the likes, which is listed under each picture, so it's easy to just look at that number. And the format with the most likes became my primary format of posting. It's a great way to get the kids excited, which got me several followers and also made engaging the kids easier. The formats I offered was a picture of the homework written on the board, as I described. I used another free app called Textgram to write the homework in text, and Textgram is designed to let you save that text as an image with creative font and kind of a pretty background, which can be uploaded to Instagram now that it's a picture. And the third option is I offered a choice where I would take a picture of the homework, either a picture of the workbook page or a page from the book, and then the caption told what page that was since it was so small. Feel free to include any other posting formats you want in the vote. It even helps to let students brainstorm ways and kind of include those. Don't worry if some formats don't really seem like they would ever work, because they probably won't win, and it's just going to add excitement as having other options, and it helps engage the students so that you get them hooked and they kind of get comfortable integrating their social and non-school Instagram life with their academic life by looking at the homework or whatever. To post to Instagram, just make sure you have a picture on your phone or tablet of what you're going to upload, whether that be a picture of the whiteboard, an image from Textgram, whatever. At the bottom of the app, you'll see this large blue button. Click on it and you'll either be asked where to get the image from, camera, photo gallery, etc., or you'll be taken to a screen with the camera preview in the upper 90% of your screen and this menu at the bottom. When you're here, you want the smaller, less noticeable button that looks like a square with mountains in it. Currently, that button is on the leftmost of the three, but Instagram is undergoing a major update right now, so the position may move. When you click that button, or when you tell Instagram your source is the photo gallery, you'll see all the pictures you have on your phone, and you choose the one you want. You'll be given a chance to crop the photo. Instagram uploads all photos as square images, so factor that in when you're taking the pictures. Next, you'll go to a screen to write your caption. Then you will post the picture when you advance to the next screen. One of the lesser known but critical principles of commercial or educational use of social media is that you want to subconsciously train your followers to anticipate your posts. I like to shoot for a Pavlovian response where at a certain time of day or after a certain event, students feel an urge to check their feeds. To that end, I try to find a specific time every single day that I'm going to post, and I make my posts at the same time every day. The exact time you pick depends on various factors, but as you may have noticed, teenagers always check their phones the moment school is out. Immediately after eating, they're going to check their phones. So if you have a message aimed specifically at students, you may want to shoot for one of those times. If your message should reach parents as well, you may want to factor in their schedule and limit your posts to times after work hours, maybe times when a parent might be on as well as a student, such as after a meal. Regardless of what you decide, settle on a good time each day and stick to it. Since Instagram can't be pre-scheduled, I generally set an alarm on my phone for 6 p.m. and aim for the after dinner checking. And finally, remember to periodically clean out your photo gallery on your phone or tablet. After 180 days of school, you'll have a lot of pictures of the homework. Also, when you post, even if the picture is already on your phone, Instagram is going to save a copy of the squared off image that it posts, so that can also eat up your memory if you don't clean those out. The final account you'll need to create is for a website called Hootsuite. It's not a social media site, it's the site that you're going to use to link your Facebook and Twitter accounts together so that you can program posts and not have to worry about being at your computer at a certain time every day. Before we continue, if you haven't changed the profile pictures on your Facebook pages and Twitter accounts so they're not using the same image for any two accounts, do this now. When you program your posts on Hootsuite, it shows you a small image of your profile pic, and that lets you pick what account you want to post to, and if they all look the same, it's going to take longer to program your scheduled posts. Set that up before you do Hootsuite. It's going to import them, and it's kind of slow on importing new changes. So to set up Hootsuite, go to hootsuite.com. You're going to put in your email, name, and create a password. Your students will never see this site, so you don't have to be detailed when it asks for a bio and all that. Some of the info that it's going to ask you for is just there because Hootsuite permits multiple users to access the same account, and it labels who makes the change. It's really designed for companies that have marketing departments. To add your accounts, go to this click to select a social network box, and you simply select the plus to add a social network. You're going to choose whether you're going to add a Facebook page or a Twitter account. Facebook is just a little bit more complicated, so that's going to be our example. So you simply say connect to Facebook, and it's going to want to make sure that it has permission to access your Facebook account. So to do that, it needs your username and password, and that's normal. Now it will show you all the pages and accounts in Facebook that you can post to, and you simply pick all the pages that you want to include here. It by default is going to include your private page, so you probably want to remove that. And then you simply hit finish importing, and it will add that. So if you drop this down, you now see that I actually have Senior Gore 1 and 2 added. And you're going to repeat this process for any Twitter accounts that you have. You will use your Hootsuite account to automate Facebook and Twitter posts. So go back if you skipped the chapter on setting up the Hootsuite account. Now, this will make it much easier on you since you can automate these days or even weeks in advance, and you won't have to worry about being someplace with a computer at a set time. Do keep in mind the most effective practice is to always post at the same time every single day. That way students and parents are subconsciously trained to look for the information at the same time. They're less likely to miss it. So you'll compose your message in this area up here. To the right, you'll pick what accounts you want to post this to. You can pick 1 or 2 or all of your accounts. If you keep your statuses short, you can duplicate them to be on both Twitter and Facebook, and you don't have to write everything twice. Down here you can see how many characters you have left that can fit on either social media stream. Twitter's the shortest, so it's the one you want to watch out for. There's also a place to add a link. And what you use that for is inserting URLs, and it will automatically shorten them so that you can fit them, even if they're fairly long, onto your different posts. I use this to include a link to PDFs of the workbook, study guides, really any post that references some material has a link to that material off of my website. Now simply click the calendar, and you can actually schedule a day, a time, and you can also select an email notification letting you know that everything posted fine. I like to do 2 posts per day. One is of the homework, so if there is no homework, I'm still going to do a post that states there is no homework. This is helpful because I tell the kids I do this. If there are any technical problems, students have no reason to claim that they didn't know there was homework because there was no post. If there's no post, that means there was a problem. If there's a post saying you don't have homework, only then do you not have homework. The other post I do is later in the day after parents get off work, and it's a countdown to the next major assignment, test, quiz, project, whatever. My intent is for parents to see that post, and if they see it's 2 days until a test and they haven't seen their child studying, hopefully they'll get worried and apply some positive pressure. To that end, I create a Facebook event on the class page as well. It's pretty simple to do that. Just go to your Facebook page, and down here you're going to see the option for offer, event, etc. Choose event, and then you can put in a name such as introductory unit vocabulary test. Put the date, and I like to select this only admins can post to the event wall. That's up to you. And when you hit create, then it's going to post your event, and that's something that the parents, students, etc. can go and they can look at and kind of see things coming up in advance. Now that you have everything set up and your daily posts are automated, it's time to take some steps to increase the following that each account has. As I've stated earlier, I consciously reject any temptation to measure the success of my social media efforts by how many students follow them, but I do consider the number of parents following these accounts a vital number needed for me to consider myself successful. After all, my goal is to hold students accountable to do their work, study, etc. If I can make sure parents know that there's a test in 2 days, we can help that out. So there's 2 ways that I encourage parents to follow these feeds, plus any minor ideas I might try or different one-time attempts such as an email home. One is that anytime I call a parent for any reason within the first 9 weeks, maybe even into the second, I end the call letting them know about the Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram accounts I maintain so that some of the kids will follow, but a lot of the parents are also aware, especially if I'm making a call because their child didn't do so well on a test. They know that they have this option of going on Facebook and finding out when that next test is and making sure that their kid has studied and does better the next time around. The other way I let parents know is by adding a signature that is automatically attached to all my emails. So there's a constant reminder every time I answer a parent's question, inform them of upcoming events, notify them of a child's grades, whether that be good or bad, or any other situation that has me emailing a parent, there's a reminder. If you're using Outlook for Mac, you can set that up simply by going to Outlook and selecting Preferences. In there, you'll see the option to choose Signatures. In the white box at the right-hand side, you type the signature you'd like to add. I typically include a few blank lines at the very top, otherwise my signature is right up under the body of whatever I type, and I have to insert a few spaces at the end of every email just to make that little space and make it very legible. This avoids that. Then I include my name, anything else I'd normally put, signing my name, and I finish by listing the accounts, Facebook first, because parents are the most likely to be on Facebook and respond to that link. If you have more than one prep, particularly if you have a lot, one solution is to, instead of providing every single feed that you maintain, only provide one link which will take parents directly to a page within your official school website. And on that page, you're listing out instructions of how to follow whatever class the child is in. So you have a little more space and you can be a little bit more specific rather than overwhelming them on these signatures. Finally, you want to click this default signatures button and just make sure that your default email account is set to use the signature you set up. Otherwise, you could have a signature and it may not go out. So obviously, while posting to all these sites does give you leverage in holding students accountable to learn, we do also want to try and make sure that they follow the accounts and act on the information. Even if that's not how we measure success, it does help us with holding them accountable. So some ideas for getting students to follow these accounts are to let them vote on something. I mentioned this when we talked about Instagram and letting students pick the format of how I posted the information, and it worked really well. It draws attention to the account. The students are interested in what other people are saying. It engages them and kind of gets them used to going to check those sites. They could be voting on posting format like we talked about. They could be voting on answers to a humorous but relevant question, such as which of the following is the definition of blank, some vocab word in there, and some of the choices may be funny enough to be worth looking at just for the comic effect. Plus, students are also learning a vocab word from the chapter. They're kind of being tested on that knowledge and pushed in addition to the comic effect. Number two is you could give bonus opportunities. Be careful with this because you want to respect those kids whose parents don't allow them on social media for whatever reason, but this is something that works well. Last year, for instance, there was just a horrible response on one of my vocab quizzes, and something like 80% of the kids got the question wrong dealing with how to say blonde in Spanish. So I posted on Instagram that within the next 36 hours, for every picture of a blonde person that they posted and tagged my account with the caption, Pelo Rubio, they would get a bonus point on that quiz, up to 3 points. So this serves to engage them on social media, but it also ensures that they're seeing a blonde person captured with the word for blonde, and it helps erase any of those associations they made with the wrong vocab word that led to them getting the question wrong in the first place. A simple one is simply advertise the account names. This one's not difficult. I usually will print off about a 3-foot wide poster from Office Max that says, follow this class online, and list all the accounts. I make it on my computer. I think I use Publisher. I don't even bother getting it laminated. It's like $2 to print it. Finally, you can email parents and students through kind of your PowerSchool information. Just make sure you're exporting the addresses and copying them into the email rather than using PowerSchool's email function. I know last year there was a bug in the version and emails wouldn't go out. But if you copy the addresses over, that will work. And that's another way a lot of times at the beginning of the year, I'll just do a blast out to all the parents saying, hey, here's the websites. If you could follow me and help keep your kids on track, then I can help them at school and we'll be able to get them from both sides. They'll be more successful. And I'll also do another blast. Some of the kids have their emails included, some don't. but just again trying to recruit the kids and get them to follow those websites so that they can get that information and be more successful.